Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. We are here to discuss one more thing about how to open your brick and mortar store in a way that is easier and gets you to your grand opening faster. Today we're going to talk about budget items that are easily missed. One, so that when you get your store open, you're not having a surprise fee that you weren't expecting. And two, because the banks really want to know that you've thought all of this stuff through before they give you funding in the first place. If you think this is something that will help you, hit that like button, subscribe so I can come back every week and give more information on how to make this process of opening your very own brick and mortar store easier and have all the information in one place. If you don't know who I am, my name is Meghan Stockman. I am a co-founder of a children's indoor playground in Westminster, Colorado. We are now a franchise and are selling locations across the country. It is how my husband and I escaped the grind of working shift work. My passion and my intent with this channel is to get more brick and mortar businesses out there. I love the mom and pop shops. I think people are ready to get back out there and have an experience that is in person and get to know their local shop owners. And it's just one of my favorite things to do. Let's get started. The first thing that people do when starting to open a brick and mortar is they go for the big items. For us, it was a giant playground. That obviously was most of our budget. We also were opening a full espresso bar up front, so we had to think about that kind of equipment. We had to think about the counters. There's obvious flooring and construction, building party rooms. Stuff like that. But also, when you are looking at your monthly costs, you kind of go for the big ones there too. You know you're going to have insurance, you know you're going to have utilities, but there are little ones that fall through the cracks and sometimes bigger ones that fall through the cracks if you're not thinking about what it's going to be like to run that business once you're open. The first one that I want to talk about is your software costs. Payroll, QuickBooks if you're going to keep your books. All of those are softwares that will help you run your business month to month, and they'll have small fees that are associated with that, so you don't want to forget those. But also your point of sale. It seems like such a no-brainer, but you do have to check people out when they come into your store. And for whatever reason, I was concentrating so hard on all of the big items when I was opening my store that I almost completely forgot to have like a checkout system. So take it from me, you do have to have that cost in your head. And there's a physical cost for like the hardware that you're going to have. But also you have software costs for the actual menu items that you're going to be able to create and list through, and you or your employees will actually check people out with. So you'll need to know what that ongoing software cost is as well. So don't overlook that piece. Some of the point of sale companies will be a lease for your hardware, so you'll pay month to month on that. And then some of them you buy it up front, so it'll be part of your initial cost for opening, but it won't be part of your month to month costs necessarily. So moving forward from that, we have number two, and that is your credit card processing fees. Usually you can find out, depending on who the credit card processor is that works with your point of sale system, like if you're with Square, you know, how much does that cost per month, or what's the percentage on the credit cards that they're charging. And then you kind of have to get a ballpark on how much you think you'll be ringing through each month. But you're going to be doing that anyway when you do your projections. So what you want to say is Square says they charge roughly 3%. So you want a line item on your expenses that is 3% of whatever income you bring in credit cards you're going to be paying out in processing fees. So make sure you don't overlook that. If you have a business that brings in $50,000 a month, 3% is a decent sized line item, and you don't want to forget to put that onto your spreadsheet when you're calculating what your monthly, books are going to look like. It's just not something you want to find out about later. The third thing I want to talk about is your security system. It's easily overlooked because it's not something you think about until you're about ready to close the doors and you have all of your stuff inside. But you'll want some sort of a camera system, and that's a little bit of an upfront cost. It's not usually expensive. You can get them at Costco or wherever, but you want some kind of eyes on your business. You want to know, have a camera maybe behind the counter. You want to have something on your front door if something happens and comes in. And then you might have a security company that is keeping an eye, and if the alarm goes off, then they check with you and see if somebody came through. So that is usually, 20, 25, $35, something like that, depending on what company you have. But it's something that over the year is a line item that you want to account for. And also, again, with the banks, they want to know that you're thinking these things through and that you're protecting their investment. Number four. Number four is your maintenance fund. And nobody wants to have this, but it is something that I always recommend, because you're just going to have things that need to be fixed, whether it is a physical shelf or a bathroom or something on your counter or software. You always have some things that are going to have to be fixed. And then there's also, you're responsible usually for the inside of the building, even if you're leasing it. So your landlords might be responsible for the outside and the roof, but they're not going to be responsible for anything that happens inside with pipes and such. So having some kind of a maintenance fund is just a really smart way to make sure that you have something put aside in case something happens and you're not, scrambling if it does. Number five is a music subscription. It's usually going to be a small cost, but it's something that you have to think about because it's a legal issue, and some people can have a devastating effect later if somebody comes after them because they're not doing what they're supposed to do as far as the ASCAP rules and licensing rules. So from what I understand, and again, I am not a legal expert on this, so please look it up in your area and make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to do for your business type. But generally, if it's like a store where people are wandering through and purchasing items, you can have background music, but you have to have a business license. So you have to have Pandora for Business, or you have to have Cloud 17 or whatever kind of licensing software, making sure that it is a pro account and that you are allowed to use that in your store, because they can come after you for not paying licensing fees to the artists. But if you charge admission, I believe that you have to have a stronger system, and it has to be paid in a different way. So you can solve those issues with getting some kind of a jukebox or something like that, but just something to think about in case you are the kind of place that charges admission. It can be a tricky thing that can come back at you later, and they are constantly going after people. So pay attention to that. The last one that I want to talk about today is signage. And of course, we all know that we need to put a sign, a big one, on the outside of the building, and that's going to cost a couple $1,000s to $20,000, depending on what your sign is and where you're going. But one of the things that I think gets missed really easily is that you have to have signs all over inside of your business too. Like, we built bathrooms, we had to put signs on that were, men and women or family, or, whatever the rules are in your city for what kind of signs you have to put on the bathrooms. But any exit signs or your menu items, if you have a menu, if you're a coffee shop, or have served food of any kind, you're going to have menus. Do you have tabletop displays, the little plastic ones that have the paper inside that give specials? Those kinds of signs are going to be everywhere. And then also any signs on your door for your opening hours, whether that's a glass door or, a hanging sign or something like that. Also, you might see sandwich boards or something like that out there. Depending on your lease, you may not be allowed to have sandwich boards, so don't buy one until you know for sure with your lease whether or not you're allowed to have one out front. But definitely budget for those things. Again, they're not huge items, but they add up, and if you're not ready for them, it can sneak up on you. So I just wanted to cover some of those things that I feel like are missed fairly easily, so that you guys are ready to go when you are presenting this stuff to the bank. You want to make sure you have every line item that you need in there. I hope you guys found this helpful today. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so that I can come back next week with more tips on how to get to your grand opening. If you guys are interested in finding out what banks are looking for when they're trying to decide whether or not to give you funding, check out this video here, and I will see you all next week.